All right, you guys, in this video, I'm just gonna go ahead and demonstrate on how to teach a place command. I'm not gonna do this with a camp dog. I'm actually gonna do this with one of my own dogs. And that's because the dog that I'm gonna use doesn't have a lot of training. He's actually a pretty good dog. When I acquired the dog, I could not find a reason to actually get rid of him because he was just so good naturally. And at the time, I just had way too many dogs and wound up keeping him, but didn't put any actual training into the dog. So he's got a little bit of a concept of this, but not on the particular bed that I'm going to use. And so without further ado, let's go ahead and get into teaching a place command. There's a lot of these videos on the internet. I thought I would just share how I like to teach it in my practice. And yeah, without further ado, let's get right on into it. Okay, now that we briefly talked about this idea, let's go ahead and pull my dog out and demonstrate this and talk about it a little bit more. And yeah, let me go get him. He's gonna be all wound up and excitable. He's gonna be spinning in circles. You guys should probably enjoy this. Come on, Bobo. All right. Now, as I mentioned, he's got a concept of this, but he doesn't, it's not something I make him do religiously. He's actually a pretty good dog. His behavior doesn't really dictate that I need to do this a lot with him. Also, for the sake of demonstration, we're going to be using the training cot that I use with most of the camp dogs. But he doesn't usually do place on this. He has a separate dog bed that he does this on. I'll show it to you in a second. But let's go ahead and get started with this exercise. All I'm going to do is go ahead and put a slip lead over him. Come here, Bubba. I'm going to slide it down just enough, and I'm going to put this notch down so he can't really slip out of it. And so it can kind of just be on him without loosening up too much. And all I'm going to do is leash him up. I'm going to walk him over to the bed, and I'm going to say place, and then I'm going to guide him on. Now, sometimes dogs are a little hesitant. It's new, they don't know what it is, and you're asking them to get on it, and they'll hit the brakes a little bit. I expect this a little bit with him, but we'll see. But this is not something I've ever asked him to do on this dog bed before. So, now that he's all sprawled out, let's go ahead and get him to get on the dog bed. All right, bud, come on. Let's go. Place. Beautiful. Yes. Perfect. So, step number one, leash the dog, walk the dog over to the bed, point, say place or spot or bed or whatever you're going to call it, and then just guide him on and reward him, okay? Now, once the dog demonstrates that they're somewhat content about staying there, the next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to try to step away from the dog. Now, most dogs who don't have a concept of this, they're going to pop right off. And there we go. And then all I'm going to do is grab the leash and I'm going to guide him right back. Let's go. Place. Perfect. And I'm going to guide him right back on, okay? And this is very typical for most dogs in the beginning when you're first teaching them this concept. Look at, there we go. They don't understand that you want them to stay there. And so most dogs, especially if this concept is completely new, they're going to want to follow you once you start walking away from the dog bed. So every time they try to get off, you're simply going to intercept them and you're going to take them back, right? Let's go. Place. Beautiful, right? Now, because the dog doesn't understand that I want them to stay there, I typically do not reward the dog every time they get off and I try to take them back. We got to be real careful about that because most dogs, let's go, place. Most dogs will get hip to that idea, especially if they're over the top food motivated. They'll hop off just so you can tell them to get back on so you can treat them, right? So you got to be real careful with this. But look it. This is my own dog. Again, he doesn't have a concept of this with this particular bed. And so this process is the same. I'm using my own dog as a demonstration for this. Let's go. Place. Perfect. Now, once the dog shows me he's content by either sitting or laying down, I'm gonna drop the leash and I'm gonna try to walk away from the dog. Now he was just outside a moment ago, so he probably wants to lay on the cool tile, but I'm gonna make him stay here for the sake of demonstration. And we're just gonna talk about this concept, okay? So, let's go, bud. Right back on. Perfect. So, again, dog tries to get off. I simply intercept the dog and I take them back. This is like the very first time we're trying to teach this to the dog, right? And I keep looking at him because every time his head drops a little bit, it's usually an indicator that the dog wants to get off. But listen, let me talk to you about this a little bit more. So when you first start introducing this concept to the dog, it's very, very typical for them to want to get off and follow you, like I mentioned a moment ago. And it's our job to simply give the dog a little feedback and say, nice and calmly. And then we grab the leash and we just escort the dog back on. Now, typically for me, this is a timed exercise, okay? I want to do this for a small duration of time, and then I want to be able to expand that duration. So for me, I like to start off with like 20 or 30-minute sessions. And I'm gonna set a timer on my smartwatch or my phone or anything else that might have a timer in the home. And for those 20 or 30 minutes, the dog is required to stay there. Now, while the dog is there, the dog can sit there, stand there, lay there, chew on toys. They can fall asleep. They can do whatever they want while they're there, as long as they don't take more than 2 paws off the dog bed. Now, on a raised cot like this, it's a little harder to have 2 paws off the bed. But on like a regular dog bed, like the dog can be laying on there with like half of their front arms off the bed, right? So 2 paws, they can't take more than 2 paws off the dog bed. However, the rule is we don't let the elbows be off the bed, okay? Because now if the elbows are off the bed, like the dog's lower half of the body, they're almost halfway off at this point. So the elbows is kind of where we draw the line and we say, hey, you have to stay there, right? You can't have more than 2 paws off the bed. And so for 20 or 30 minutes at a time, that's it. It's rinse and repeat. The dog tries to get off. I intercept the dog. I walk the dog back. I point. I say place or whatever you're going to name this thing. And for 20 or 30 minutes, it doesn't matter how many times the dog tries to get off. I'm just going to escort the dog back every time, okay? Now, it's really, and so I put a lot of emphasis on duration out of the gate on this. And that's because a lot of dogs, especially when you're introducing this in the beginning, conditioning says, like, I'm not used to staying here. I'm used to running around and getting on the couch and the sofa. And I'm used to doing whatever I want to do. A lot of dog trainers, and it's not wrong. I'm not saying these other ways are wrong. I'm just simply showing you guys how I like to teach this concept. But a lot of dog trainers put a lot of emphasis on go there and then release, and go there and release, and go there and release. So they're teaching the concept of going there. They're teaching the concept of releasing, but there's not a lot of emphasis on duration in the beginning. This is where let's go. Up, up, up. Perfect. So this is where I personally go a little bit against the industry norm here. I put all of my emphasis on duration first in the beginning. And it's all about staying there, all right? In my sessions, I don't put a lot of emphasis on getting on and getting off, and getting on and getting off. And there's also like a lot of treating that's happening. There's a high rate of reinforcement that's happening when you're doing that. I also use a leash for this exercise as well, okay? So let me talk about that really briefly. The leash, for me, is the primary reinforcement in regards to teaching this exercise. And the reason why is because I want to be able to take this 20 or 30 minute duration and I want to be able to build on it. I want to be able to go from 20 minutes to 40 minutes to 60 minutes and beyond, okay? I want to be able to use this exercise for an extended period of time as much as I may need to. Let me explain. So let's just say that we have dogs that are super friendly, super happy-go-lucky, and they want to jump all over our company. And I might have company over for a couple hours. Maybe I'm gonna have company over for the Super Bowl, or a sporting event of some kind, or a birthday, or a celebration of some type. I want to be able to do this for an extended period of time so that my dog's not harassing my company, but my dog can still be a part of everything that's happening inside, okay? And so for me, it's all about the duration in the beginning. And as you can see, my dog, Little Mac, tried to get off several times. And all I've done in a short period of time is simply grab the leash and take him back. I did this maybe 4 or 5 times already. And he's already getting the concept that I just want him to stay there. And I've done this simply just by grabbing the leash and taking him back. That's the benefit of focusing on duration right away. Now, a lot of dogs in a lot of homes, like teaching a release is not going to be a problem. Those dogs are happy to get off of there and run around. So, just to reiterate, all of my focus is on duration, getting the dog to stay there for an extended period of time. And I don't want to be dependent on the food for this, okay? Like when we're doing regular obedience exercises like sit stays and down stays and heeling and coming when called, those are really short sessions. Those sessions are 5, maybe 10 minutes in length. And there's a high rate of reinforcement happening there. I'm rewarding my dog a lot for every little thing, especially in the teaching phases of the obedience work. I'm shaping sits and I'm shaping downs. I'm getting the dog to comprehend the idea of staying in one place in a particular position. And so, in order for the dog to learn, there's a high rate of reinforcement happening there. That's not the same concept I have with my place command, okay? For me in particular, it's all about the duration, and there's very little food reinforcement happening with this particular exercise. And it's for the reasons I mentioned just a moment ago. All of my emphasis is on duration and extending that duration for as long as I see fit, okay? Just to give you a real world example, let's say I need my dog to stay there for a few hours and not pester my company because they're overly friendly. I can use this as an obedience exercise to prevent my dog from doing that. If he's here, he can't be there jumping on my company, okay? So all of the emphasis is on duration for me. However, we do use a little bit of food in the beginning, especially when we're teaching it. I'm doing this, 3 or 4 times a day for 20 or 30 minutes at a time. I am using food when I initiate the session, and then I'm also offering a little bit of food when I finish the session, okay? Really important. And that's kind of how I like to teach this concept. Now, the other thing I want to talk to you about with this exercise is there's what I would refer to as 2 types of dogs when it comes to teaching a place command, okay? There are the dogs, like Little Mac, who become content with the idea that you want them to stay there. They're on a dog bed, the bed is comfortable, and they're happy to stay there, okay? It's like being on a couch cushion, but it's just different. Now this is a training cot. His bed is over there. I'll show it to you in a moment. But when the dog's on a regular dog bed and not a training cot in particular, it's comfortable. Most dogs become content about staying there. And teaching this process is nice and easy. You simply just have to grab the leash and take the dog back over and over again. And then with enough repetition, they start to go, oh, okay, you want me to stay here. That's dog number 1. Dog number 2 is a different kind of dog. That dog says, you know, I know you want me to stay here, but I'd rather not. And for this dog, conquering 60 minutes is really difficult to do. The dog is like trying to get off over and over and over again. So for that dog, I may need to consider, pending I've done all of my groundwork well, I may need to consider the thoughtful use of a correction here. And when the dog starts to get off, instead of just escorting them back, once I get a hold of the leash, I give it a little yank, and then I take him back. That's the only thing that we add there, is a yanking of the leash and taking the dog back to the dog bed. Now we've got to be careful about doing this too early. We want to make sure we're being fair to the dog. We want to make sure we've done enough repetition. But to give you a basic idea of this, let me just put it into perspective for you. If after about 4 days of you taking the dog back every time they try to get off, and you haven't been able to extend the duration of this exercise past 20 or 30 minutes, but you're doing this exercise 3 or 4 times a day, for me, I would say we've done this enough. The dog, I think, has a pretty good idea of what we're asking from them, and they're consciously choosing to not stay there. They're being disobedient, for lack of a better term. At that point, I might start to consider my correction. Because to be very honest with you, you could actually teach if you start off with 20 or 30 minute sessions, and your goal is to work your way up to 60 minutes, like I have most of my clients do, gosh, like you should be able to conquer 60 minutes within a few days easy. If you do this exercise 3 to 4 times a day, okay? So again, there's 2 types of dogs when it comes to teaching this concept. The dog that's content with being there, and then there's the other dog that says, I know what you want, I'd rather not. And we might have to consider the thoughtful use of a correction to get the dog to stay there. But teaching this concept is honestly that easy, okay? It's not rocket science. It's not rocket science. It's not overly complicated. And rehearsal is everything in dog training. Now, there is a point also where I want to try to get away from the leash, but I need to have a couple of things in place, at least in my dog training practice, okay? I want to be able to have the dog stay there for at least 60 minutes without getting off. I want to be able to do that regularly with confidence, knowing the dog will stay there. The other prerequisite for the consideration to get away from a leash for this exercise is I should be able to get people through the door of my home without the dog getting off to the bed and greeting them. Meaning I'm using this as a tool for the door. So I have my dog here on my dog bed. Someone comes to the door, knocks on the door. My dog can't leave the dog bed to go greet people at the door or bark at the door. They have to stay there, and they have to stay there while I let my company through the door as well. Okay? That's the second prerequisite. The third prerequisite is that once my company's in, the dog's capable of staying there. They're not constantly harassing the company. And I can get my dog to stay there for as long as I need to, as long as I have company here. Within reason, okay? Maybe after a couple hours, my dog needs a break, a potty break or a water break. So we're getting the dog to stay there for as long as we need to within reason, okay? He's not a prisoner. And then the last prerequisite, the fourth prerequisite that I have for this exercise is simply the ability to disappear out of sight for an extended period of time, for a short period of time, sorry. So if I need to use the restroom, I should be able to go down the hall and use the restroom without the dog getting off. Or I should be able to go around the corner to the kitchen and make a sandwich or a snack or get a snack or make dinner. I should be able to go to I should be able to go out to the mailbox and check the mail and come back in, and my dog shouldn't be able to get off the bed. And so those are examples of me disappearing out of sight and my dog still staying on the dog bed without getting off, okay? This is how I like to teach this concept. So let's just recap. We start off with a leash. We do use a little bit of food in the very beginning. We leash up my dog. I guide him to the bed, guide him on, reward him for getting on, and then I wait for my dog to get comfortable. Once I see him sit or lay down, then I drop the leash. I start working my way away from the dog. I should be able to move about my home freely, sit down. Oh, careful, see the head come up? See, I should be able to sit down and I should be able to move about my home freely without my dog getting off, okay? That's step one. Step two is to conquer 20-minute duration sessions, okay? I want to be able to do 20 minutes 2 or 3 times in a row where the dog doesn't get off the dog bed. Once I have that in the bag, I just extend my sessions from 20 minutes to 40 minutes. And it's the same thing there. I want my dog to be able to stay there for 40 minutes, 2 or 3 sessions in a row where he doesn't get off. And then from there, I just go from 40 to 60. So getting from 20 to 60 is pretty easy. The hardest part is actually conquering that 20 minutes, okay? So I've gone through that progression time-wise. I'm up to 60-minute sessions. Now I want to start using it as a tool for the door and having company in the house. And so I start using it as a tool for the door and working on the act of getting people through the door. Next step, having company move about freely in the home where the dog doesn't get off. And I treat this the same way, okay? Let's just say the dog tries to get off to go say hi to somebody. I simply go, and I nice and calmly go and grab the leash and escort him back, okay? And it's the same thing there. Any attempts to get off while my company's in the house, I just grab the leash and escort the dog back, okay? And then, of course, disappearing out of sight for a short period of time. And then also releasing the dog from the bed. And I'm going to do that here in a second. But you got to have a release cue. The dog needs to know when it's okay to get off. And for me, that release cue is okay or all done. Doesn't matter what you say, just make sure it's the same word every time. And that's it. That's how you teach a successful place command. So with that being said, let me go ahead and release him from the dog, this training cot. And then I'll slide his bed over into frame so you can actually see it. And he'll probably just run over and get on that. So let me go ahead and release him. Mini Mac. Okay, buddy. All right, come on, come on. Yes, my boy. There we go. Oh my goodness. Look, I'm gonna drop those treats. He can have them. And then this is the bed he typically lays on. We'll just throw that into frame. Once he's done with the treats. Also, by the way, don't forget to take the leash off whenever you're done with the exercise, okay? Leash comes off, you invite the dog off, you take the leash off, you treat the dog, and then he goes to his regular dog bed, maybe. Go on, go, right there. So that's his regular dog bed. So he's very familiar with going to that one, but I thought I would use the training cot that I use with the camp dogs that come through here. And honestly, you can do this with either dog bed, okay? The reason why I chose to use this one, and the reason why I choose to use this one for camp dogs, is because it's a flat piece of material, super easy to clean. Like eventually you put enough dogs on a dog bed, it's gonna start to smell like dog and it's gonna need to be washed. So this is super easy to clean and it's not something I need to throw in my washing machine and worry about like dog hair getting all clogged up, okay? That one needs to be cleaned, but it's his, it's only his. We don't use that for the camp dogs and he's way more familiar with that anyways. So anyways, I think we're cooking probably on about 30 minutes now. So that's how I like to teach a place command. Let me know if you have questions about it in the comments. Like and subscribe if you made it all the way through. We appreciate you watching. And yeah, we'll see you in the next video. You want to say bye to the people? Say bye. Wait, hold on. I know who wants to say bye. Hold on. Hey, what's up, Benny? Huh? This guy wants to say bye to the people. Say bye. See the way he looked at me? All right, man. Go do what you do. Go do what you do. Those are my 2 dogs. I used to have like a pack of 8, but Father Time caught up with them all. I was down to just him, but in December, the wife said she wanted a lap dog, and now we have that dog. We brought him home from the pound. That's it. This video's done. Peace. Thanks for watching.